Let's get right into it. Welcome to this explainer brought to you by Forge College. If you remember from our last lesson on planning real-world audits and evidence workflows, we spent a lot of time drawing up our architectural blueprints. Well, today is the day we put those blueprints through the ringer. We're stepping into the live vulnerability detection and triage phase, a crucial part of our capstone project for the comprehensive security audit module. Basically, we are taking those static analysis plans we built and we're putting them under immense, sometimes totally chaotic pressure to see exactly what breaks. Fingers crossed nothing literally explodes in our faces, right? So we are shifting from those theoretical flags we mapped out previously right into the concrete reality of proving those bugs actually exist. It's one thing to look at a static line of code and confidently say, I think there's a problem here. It's a completely different game to write a script that forces that bug out into the open. It's kind of like the difference between claiming you saw Bigfoot in the woods and actually putting him in a cage for everyone to see. Here's our engineering schematic for today. We'll start by moving from theory to reality, then we'll set up our sandbox, build the reproduction script, collect some concrete evidence, handle triage and reporting, and finally, package it all up in the final dossier. All right, part 1, from theory to reality, moving past the blueprint. Listen, we have to treat the static analysis outputs from our previous phase as mere hypothesis seeds. They're just ideas that absolutely require hands-on validation now. The crucial takeaway here is that a finding isn't real until it's a reproducible finding. That means anyone, whether it's a fellow auditor or a highly skeptical lead developer, can recreate the exact same crash using your specific steps without having to guess your setup or make any additional assumptions. Because let's be honest, if it's not reproducible, it's not a bug. It's just a rumor. Moving right along to part 2, setting up the sandbox, or as I like to call it, engineering a controlled explosion. Okay, before we just start throwing chaotic exploits at our code, we desperately need a safe environment to conduct our tests. Think of a local fork as your own private matrix simulation. It looks, feels, and acts exactly like the real blockchain network, but you have absolute godlike control over the timeline. You can manipulate blocks, test volatile exploits, and blow things to absolute smithereens, all without accidentally draining your own real-world wallet, which is, a huge plus. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why we never, ever test directly on mainnet. Testing in a local fork guarantees that your results are free, safe, and most importantly, perfectly reproducible every single time. Mainnet is a wild, unpredictable, and highly expensive jungle. Your local fork, on the other hand, is a perfectly sterile, deterministic, bulletproof laboratory. Now, as you structure your workspace on your machine, you're going to want these 3 crucial folders: your scripts, your evidence, and your report. Building methodical engineering habits like this is actually a core focus in the comprehensive Web3 programs we offer at Forge College. Keeping your reproduction scripts, your forensic evidence like traces and receipts, and your final debug report strictly separated ensures you never lose a vital piece of data when you need it most. Because trust me, nobody wants to hunt for the evidence of a $1 million exploit in a folder named New Folder 3. All right, part 3, the reproduction script, automating our stress test. Let's look at how this builds into an actual automated test. By following these 4 mechanical steps using a tool like Hardhat or Foundry, you turn a vague hypothesis into a targeted, repeatable attack script. You lock in the exact block, you connect a consistent deterministic test wallet, you format the precise input parameters, and you hit launch to send the transaction. Then you just sit back, capture the trace, and watch the sparks fly. Understanding call data is absolutely key here. Think of it as essentially the exact sequence of button presses required to pop open a vulnerable lockbox. It's the raw, undeniable hexadecimal proof of exactly what you asked the smart contract to do right before it failed. And if your transaction is, say, a digital bank heist, well, debug_trace transaction is the high-definition security camera footage capturing every single microscopic movement inside the vault. It doesn't just tell you that the transaction failed, it shows you the exact opcode level line where the entire system collapsed. It's incredibly powerful stuff. Moving on to part 4, collecting concrete evidence and documenting the wreckage. Once your script successfully triggers the bug, you have to meticulously collect the debris to prove exactly why the structure failed. This matrix serves as your absolute minimum evidence checklist. Notice how the required forensic data shifts depending on the type of vulnerability. A state revert needs a receipt, a trace, and call data bytes. But an accounting logic bug? That absolutely demands before and after balances and a unit test to prove money was actually lost. You always have to match your evidence to the specific crime. 3. For your debug report to be considered fully complete in this phase, you need a minimum of 3 distinct, fully reproducible findings along with all their accompanying evidence. 1 finding, that's an anomaly. 2 is a coincidence. But 3 proves you have a systematic working detection pipeline. That brings us to part 5, triage and reporting, where we label the damage. With all the evidence securely bagged and tagged, we now have to apply the triage criteria we established way back in our planning phase. You are basically acting as the ruthless site inspector here. You'll assign strict severity, high, medium, or low, and confidence labels like confirmed, reproducible, or potential. And these must be directly backed by the traces you collected. No guesswork, no hyperbole allowed. Every label must be anchored by a concrete, observable fact, summarized in a clear 1-sentence rationale. I really want to highlight this quote because it's the golden rule of the industry. If your report requires someone to magically guess your environment variables, it just isn't a true reproduction. The absolute highest compliment an auditor can ever get is a developer coming up to them and saying, "Hey, I ran your script, it broke exactly how you said it would, and I knew exactly how to fix it." And our final section, part 6, the final dossier packaging the debug report. Everything we've built today culminates in this evidence-first artifact. Before you even think about wrapping up for the day, verify your workspace against this checkpoint checklist to guarantee your report is perfectly engineered and ready for peer review. Are your deterministic start points, like block numbers, actually recorded? Do your reproduction scripts run entirely unmodified? Is all the forensic data, receipts, traces, calldata, actually present in the folder? Check it twice, guys, like a highly paranoid Santa Claus. So, your findings are confirmed, documented, and fully reproducible. Now for the big question. How do you translate this highly technical risk into a compelling narrative that stakeholders will actually act on? Finding the bug is really only half the battle. Explaining why it matters to the business is the whole other half. As we wrap up this module on static analysis for smart contracts and prepare for our next explainer on crafting strategic recommendations, I highly encourage you to visit forge.college. You can learn so much more about this subject, explore our other Web3 related courses, and truly master the art of smart contract security. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and keep building securely.